been a revolution. Singing.
All right, everybody, Pastor Allen here with video number 17, stoking you up, ready to fire you up for this weekend. You need to go to church this weekend. Okay, here's the phrase for the week. Sermon-based small groups. This is a phrase that I became familiar with back in 2009 when I graduated from Gordon Commonwealth Theological Seminary. About a year and a half before that, I had gone to the residency, finished my final residency, and then got on the plane dejected because my proposal had been rejected. And so I'm on a plane reading Tom Rainer's book, Simple Church, and I find a little sliver of hope at 30,000 feet. There was a church in Kentucky in the middle of nowhere that was doing sermon-based small groups. Now, they didn't call them that, but I read about it in Rainer's book, and there was a guy that would teach on Sunday morning, then they would regurgitate the content through discussion and further teaching in Sunday school groups and a couple of small groups, but I don't think many. I thought, what if I could write a curriculum? What if I could write a dissertation based on how different churches write this curriculum, if it's even a thing at all? I had never heard of it. So I get home and I Google it right away. I Google it and I find North Coast Church. North Coast Church is in Carlsbad, California. It's Stokey. You need to, man, if I lived out there, I'd join that church. But I research this church and I do my second chapter and I write it and I get it going. And Dr. Robinson kicks it back and goes, okay, this is a good idea, but you got to prove this, not from North Coast Church, but from the Bible. Our sermon-based small groups in the Bible. And I thought, great, here we go. So I start looking for where Jesus might have done this. I look in the book of Acts where his followers did it. And then Jesus did the same thing. They just did what he was doing. And here's what he did. He would teach in public, and then he would take his disciples to the side for further instruction and further discussion around the same topic. Why? I'll give you some reasons why you should use sermon-based small groups. You should be a part of a sermon-based small group. You should be listening to a message at least once a week, if not more. But once a week, you should be doing that and getting online, getting into preferably a small group that is got some people in it, and doing some food, doing some Bible, doing some coffee, all of that. Here it is. If you're a church that's committed to teaching the Word of God through exposition, meaning we go verse by verse around the context of the passage with the big idea that the author intended to be unfolded in that passage, you are a candidate to use sermon-based small groups. They're easier to manage, that's another piece, because you don't have to have teachers who are doing a hardcore study each week to unfold a different topic, of which the people are not going to read books and do all this extra study. They're looking for discussion around the Bible. So you could use sermon-based small groups. These allow teaching to be discussed in biblical community, number 2. Number 3, allows pastors to be disciple makers in the local church. Pastor, your message is an important message. You're teaching through books of the Bible or key series that you think is important. But here's the thing. 5% of what people hear, they forget within 24 hours. The Edgar Dale Cone of learning proves that. We've heard that. And so how do you fix that? You bring it up about 3 or 4 days later in a small group, in a home, around food, around coffee, around a Bible, around people who are stoked up. Listen, sermon-based small groups, they also help us with attention drift. People just lose attention. They've got all these ideas coming at them, and there's a lot of stuff going on. They need help remembering what they're teaching. So it gives an opportunity to fight and compensate for attention drift. Another reason why you should use sermon-based small groups, they're a relational connection, they have intentional content, and they have reproduction in the middle of the disciple making. So what I mean by that is it's all based on relationships. Larry Osborne says that in his book, Sticky Church. Bible study, small groups, whatever it is, specifically small groups, they need to be built on relationship, but also intentional content. So what we mean by that is, what Osborne means by it, is that when people come to church and they hear teachings, what happens is they're ready for the small group Bible study. Now you're going to bring that same topic up somewhere else, and there's not like this hierarchy of knowledge within the group. No. It's based on relationship, and it's based on intentional content, which was the message that you taught on Sunday morning. Now, because these groups are not that difficult to manage, they're much easier to say to a prospective leader, hey, look, take the material, go in, ask a bunch of questions, get discussion going, look for doctrine, see where people are in the Lord, how are they growing? You use this as a way to create unity and movement. Well, here's the thing. It's easy to reproduce. You reproduce new groups with new leaders out of those groups, and they're not sitting there going, oh man, I can't do this. I got to have all this teaching content. No. With sermon-based small groups, you don't have to have that. Sermon-based small groups are much simpler, not easy. I'm not trying to imply it's easy, but they're simpler. You don't have to do all this extra stuff. So, sermon-based small groups, reproducing in your church what Jesus did and what the church in the book of Acts did. But if you don't believe me, just take a look in the book of Acts. Maybe that'll be another video that I'll do. But I want to encourage you guys, you need to be in a smaller group, a community. I've called it a church crew. You need to be in a small group community where you do life with other believers. If you go to a church of 2,000, 1,000, or whatever people, even 200 people, and you're not in a small group, I would challenge you, take a risk, get in a small group. They're not going to eat you. God's going to use it. He's going to leverage your life into other people's lives, and you're going to help them grow in the Lord. Well, I've had too much caffeine. How about you? Right on, baby. Love you guys. Keep it stoked up.